Hey everybody, Tom here with Hidden Beats, and today we're talking with Grace Chiang. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure for sure. So, for those who are a little bit new to you, can you give yourself a little bit of an intro as to who you are and what you do in music?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Grace. I'm a music producer based in Vancouver, BC. I've been producing for about 2 years now. Graduated from Sumter College with a diploma in music production last year, and currently working with local artists to produce music. Mostly, I work with underrepresented artists, so that includes like female artists, BIPOC artists, because I'm passionate about telling their stories. And currently, also the assistant audio engineer at Echo Plant Recording Studios and participating in the Women Studio National Accelerator hosted by Music Publishers Canada.
Nice, and that's actually the main reason we're here to talk to you today is about the accelerator program.
Yeah.
So, first things first, how did you get started in music, or how did you become interested in pursuing a career in music?
Uh, Interesting, weird, long story that I still don't really know how to explain. After high school, I actually attended University of British Columbia and did a bachelor's in civil engineering. So I wasn't actually pursuing music until around 3 years ago after I graduated and decided to go to music school. It was a weird transition of just learning music and then realizing that I like it too much and then realizing that maybe I want to do this instead. So it was a series of big and small events over the course of a few years that kind of led me to decide that I was gonna switch careers basically. But I grew up playing music and learned guitar and piano. So it was always kind of in my background, just was never really a career option until the last few years.
Okay. Yeah, I read a bit in your profile that was sent over to me is that you have a classic piano background and you were working on that for a bit, and you're
Mm-hmm.
also a first generation Chinese Canadian with music in your family.
Yeah, I don't come from a musical family as far as I as far as I know. So with working in the Vancouver music industry, it was really just starting from nothing. Like I didn't have any connections. I didn't know anybody or anything. I just kind of like I took lessons, but I wasn't really connected. And so it was starting from the bottom for me, really. Yeah.
D does your like Chinese heritage influence any of your music at all, or
I think my experience being Chinese is it influences kind of the way I see life, just being like I'm English speaking. I'm born here, but I'm Chinese, and I feel like there's not that many people who are like me who do what I do. So it's kind of interesting for me to try and see if there's something unique about that, and if there's a story for me to tell that's different from maybe what other people are doing.
okay, no, that's nice. Um, so you have a classic piano background, but you've kind of moved into the pop R&B. Like there's a couple other monikers that have been described for your music. How did that swing come about? Like what influenced you to move in that direction?
Well, I grew up playing classical piano, basically because that's what everybody did. It was part of childhood. It was one of those things where it's like, oh, you throw your kid in a lesson and hope that they learn some discipline and some hand-eye coordination and skills. So I did that for, I think it was only about 5 or 6 years, but I was a kid. Like I was in elementary school and middle school when I did that. So it was learning like the fundamentals of music and reading music and understanding rhythm. But I didn't really know like what the different worlds were between like the contemporary world and classical world. Like I didn't understand what like songwriting was, what improvisation was, what music production was until I quit piano and started just exploring and watching like YouTube videos and going to concerts. And so it was always two different worlds for me. But I've always listened to like pop music a lot more. I don't jam out to like Beethoven for fun.
I mean, yeah, it's pop music being front and center with a lot of things. It makes sense to have that as a major influence, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Is there any artists that you look at as influences for you now, like current artists?
Yeah, I look to a lot of producers who I think have very interesting and oh, like interesting careers that they have curated for themselves. So I think of people like Ryan Tedder, who is the frontman of One Republic, also has penned, many, many hits over the years, one of the greatest songwriters of our generation, in my opinion. Um, so he's definitely one of my biggest inspirations. I love like he has his artist project that he produces, he performs, he writes with a ton of people, and I also think of people like Jack Antonoff, similar idea, frontman of Bleachers, produces for Lord and Lana Del Rey and Taylor Swift. And so I think people like them are my biggest influences because I love that they do a variety of things, but you can always recognize when they've had their hand on something because their sound or their style is just so unique and so influential.
Mm-hmm. And so being a producer yourself, what do you think I guess the difference is almost between producing and just being the face like a mainstream artist? How are those two translating now?
Well, for me, I don't have a current artist project right now. My face isn't, on covers or anything at the moment. When it comes to music producer, I think it's you have to understand like the creative with the technical. Because in my opinion, a music producer is someone that has to understand music as well as projects and budgets and scopes and people. Like you have to be realistic about what you can practically create and what the performers or the song can really do, but you have to be able to execute that and bring people's visions to life. So I think it's an interesting blend of technical proficiency and critical thinking as well as creativity, which for me, I think I bring a lot of that coming from a civil engineering background because I don't think many people can say that they know how to do spreadsheets or budget or network or do write technical emails or things like that. And I think being a producer, like you have to combine those elements of creativity and ultimately make sure that the end product is something that is tangible and real. It tells the story. It tells whatever it is that you want to tell.
Mm-hmm. And I find these days myself that you're not just an artist anymore. You have to be multifaceted and learn different things just because the way the music industry is kind of evolving.
Yeah, for sure. I think growing up, I always thought that like artists were just singers and then they had like a team of people behind them. And I didn't understand what an indie artist was. I didn't know that that was something that you could do for yourself. I kind of thought that if you were a singer, it was like, oh, you were walking around the streets and then someone discovered you and then you signed a record deal and then everybody did all the work for you, but you just kind of like were the front of everything. But now it's like you have to be everything. You have to know everything. You have to be your own manager, your own agent, your own writer and performer. So I think it's a whole different like ball game, really.
Mm-hmm. And I think it also helps with programs like the accelerator program, the women in the studio, because you get a different kind of push in the sense of having your skills broadened and everything.
Yeah, for sure. The Women in Studio program is it's there to kind of for me it's to bridge the gap between school and the industry because you learn about things that you didn't know that you needed to know. Like you go to school or you're a musician or musicians and it's like, well, I know how to write songs, I can play, I sound nice, but it's like when it comes to working, do you know about royalties and copyrights? Do you know what the difference is between like publishing ownership and sound recording ownership? Do you know what record labels do? Do you know how to book gigs? Do you know how to manage your own social media? It's like all the skills that you didn't know that you needed is what I think the Women in the Studio program is really helping me with.
Mm-hmm. And this is actually the second year that Hidden Beats has got to talk with some people within the program. So it's interesting to watch the growth as these things are going on. So it's fun getting to talk to you because I get to hear a little bit more about your story and how you're growing within the program, things like that.
That's great. Yeah.
So how do you, or what's your vision of the industry so far with everything, COVID just kind of ended and there's so much music out there. How do you think things have been evolving?
Uh, for the local scene, I think people are coming out of writing quarantine. Like I've noticed a lot of projects that have come out of home studios and people being in isolation, just writing. And then now people are more open to performing and networking and going to in-person concerts. So I think it's interesting to see that people have kind of taken the last year or two to buckle down and write and tell stories and maybe just sit and reflect because they didn't have time to do that in the past, whereas 2020 kind of presented that. For me, I also started making beats basically in quarantine.
That's actually where these interviews started, was the start of COVID.
Yeah.
And so I'm a concert photographer. So I'm typically out there in front taking pictures of everything and reviewing a live show. And then I got offered interviews because, well, that's the only thing people could do. So I think it gave people a lot more time to kind of expand their horizons in a sense too.
Yeah. I think when people don't necessarily have uh opportunities to go out and socialize, they kind of sit and realize, oh, maybe there's something that I can do that I didn't get a chance to do.
Like I would have never been in front of a camera before.
I don't think I ever would have like started making beats.
So with the music industry being as it is, how important is a focus on women in the music industry?
I think it's important because women have always been in the industry, and I think women have always had roles as producers, as recording engineers and audio engineers, but for some reason, they're not highlighted as that, which is interesting to me. I think of people like Beyonce, Ariana Grande, like you think of them and you think, oh, like pop star performers or whatever, but they're very much producers. Like they have production credits on all their records, but you don't really attach like female artists to the words producer and recording engineer, even though that is like really, that's what they do. Like they are very hands-on and involved in the recording and production process. So I think building awareness of that and just including that language when we talk about the music industry, I think would be a big help. I think there are so many talented women who are in the industry and they just aren't seen or credited as recording engineers or producers and so on.
And someone like myself, I don't get to see that as much. So it's always, I always find it shocking with some of the stats and some of the things that you hear with behind the scenes stuff. So it's nice to see programs like this that kind of put a little bit of a spotlight on you guys.
Yeah, I read the stats too, but I think they are maybe like under reporting because I think maybe women just they don't feel the need to maybe be credited, or it's not common that they're credited even though they should be. So I like to think that there's actually a lot more. They're harder to find. They're keeping their head down and working really hard. But when I talk to a lot of female artists, it's like they are producers. Like maybe they don't put themselves as a producer first, but they do produce, they do record, they do work in these male-dominated industries.
And that's almost, it's weird to think, but that's pretty much similar to most industries where stuff is underreported, especially in the regards to women in those industries and things like that. So you're probably right. There's probably a pretty large number that's not actually represented there.
Yeah. It's weird for me because I come from, I mean, when I did civil engineering, it was also the same thing. Like my class was like 1 in 10 in my class were women. So I come from two different male dominated industries.
Mm-hmm. So what's your goals musically? Like what do you hope to accomplish with what you're doing and with working with the program?
Specifically with the program, I'm hoping to build a lot of business skills and make a lot of connections. We've had a few webinars. I've had a few one-on-one meetings with mentors. We are going to be visiting Toronto in a month, and me coming from Vancouver and only knowing a small amount of people, I'm really excited to like expand my network and meet people who are marketing specialists, entertainment lawyers, other songwriters and producers as well, but just really getting it like a larger scope of what I need as a musician, and also to explore different like career opportunities and income streams. Like as someone who knows how to, write or produce or edit, for example, it's like, well, aside from pop music, what can I do? Like, can people get me into the gaming industry, film, TV, and whatever dialogue, podcasting, and things like that, and just really kind of opening up what I see the music industry to be and creating lots of opportunities for myself. So those are my goals with the program specifically. Um, some short-term goals would just being a musician, definitely putting out original music and spotlighting and showcasing local artists, local female artists, BIPOC artists. I have a few songs that I hope to release in the next year that are collabs, all either female or BIPOC artists, and all like co-written, co-produced, mixed by me. So I'm hoping to put together um, definitely a few releases where it's like, hey, like here are some songs that were made like by local people, by women, nothing too fancy, but it's like, here's our heart and soul that we want to share. And also, I started curating events because I really like to perform and I really like to have a career that's interesting where I do a bunch of different things. So I'm starting a concert series called Saturday Evening Serenade. I actually had a show last month where I booked it myself and I showcased a local female singer songwriter. And I'm hoping to continue that series because, again, it's along the lines of, like showcasing underrepresented artists just in different ways and really putting like my business skills to the test and seeing if I can gather a lot of like female owned businesses, locally owned businesses to kind of create a more vibrant, welcoming local music scene that really represents the diversity of Vancouver.
Mm-hmm, actually, so you'll have to send me some information about that because I have some of my team stationed in Vancouver. So I
Oh
got a
yeah,
couple of photographers out there. Maybe we can help with some photography exposure and add some
yeah,
extra stuff like that. So definitely
yeah,
send me some info.
yeah, yeah. Do I have your contact, Tom? I think I only have your website.
I mean, you can contact me through the website or
Okay,
social media. Those are all very easy. I'm the one
okay,
who manages all that stuff. So
yeah,
yeah, but for sure that'd be awesome. I'd love to see if we can get one of the girls out to help and get some
yeah.
pictures and stuff done.
Great. So you have people in like the East Coast and the West Coast.
So I have a team stationed in Vancouver, Winnipeg, Halifax, Ottawa, Toronto. Like I'm based out of Ottawa myself.
Yeah.
And then I've got a couple throughout the US and one shooter in the UK actually.
Oh, wow.
A little bit bigger than people expect because this is all word of mouth for me. I don't do a lot of advertising. I try to keep it very um I want the attachments and then the relationships to be more meaningful that way versus just throwing a Google ad out there and hoping somebody
Mm.
clicks it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What is kind of like your connection being a photographer? Like, are you really focused on musicians specifically and music industry and kind of the intersection between like photography and storytelling and music? Is that kind of like what you do?
So I have a native background, and
Mm-hmm.
storytelling is a large component within in the native community. So when I first started, it was started out more as a hobby for me, and then we got into trying to tell a story within pictures, for instance, or a review. So I actually had no idea what I was going to do back when I first started Hidden Beats. It used to be a social media website, and then the two partners I had couldn't handle it, and they left, and I wasn't about to try to run a social media website by myself. So I transitioned to content development, and then trying to tell other people's stories. And music was just the easiest avenue I found to go down, because I just knew so many musicians, and I could get out there and tell more about their stories, and it expanded from there, really.
Oh, I see. Yeah. So I feel like we have a similar vibe, just like approaches with similar goals.
Yeah, you're just looking at a different community versus where I'm I'm looking on the Indigenous side as much. So we just dropped a clothing line, like, so this logo here, I don't know what side you can see it on, but, and I have a couple other hats and shirts that a piece of every sale of those goes to support Indigenous charities and Indigenous music foundations.
Okay.
It's kind of an expanded thing that I was trying to do to add more value to the community in that sense.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Especially, I think Vancouver and on places. Are you Toronto?
Oh, so
Ontario,
I'm in Ottawa, and then I have
Ottawa.
a team in Toronto.
Yeah, I think places like that are so diverse, but the music industry or maybe entertainment industry in general, it doesn't really reflect that diversity. Like there's a lot for me here, growing up here, there's a lot of like, East Asians, Southeast Asians, South Asian people, but it's like in the entertainment industry, it's like you don't see them, even though they are here.
It's definitely not as well broadcasted for some of these communities, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of my story behind that stuff, anyways.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, I have a few fun questions I do like to ask everybody, kind of give us more of an insight to you as a person, and kind of and your influences.
Mm-hmm.
First one is, what is something on your go-to playlist that people wouldn't expect you listen to?
Um, uh,
I call these almost like a guilty pleasure song that, your friends might not even think that you would listen to something like this.
I mean, I listen to like Shania Twain. I don't know if that's like really unexpected. I guess I don't really have many friends who are kind of like the pop country fans, but sometimes I'm like, I just want to be confident and I just want to hear the sound of a powerful, sappy, strong woman sing to me.
And Shania is the queen of
Yeah,
strong, powerful woman, that's for sure.
yeah, yeah. I don't listen to that kind of music for like necessarily like production inspiration. Like I'm not referencing her songs for like mixes or anything. I listen to it like for the soul, you know what I mean? Like for the emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For the inspiration. Yeah.
Yeah, just outside of work kind of thing, or it's
Yeah.
more fun to have that feeling and that energy, for sure.
Yeah. I was just watching her documentary and I loved it. The one on Netflix.
I just got to cover her at the Boots and Hearts Festival, so I got to actually get up front and shoot pictures of her live.
Yeah. How was she? She
Oh,
like
outstanding.
goddess.
Yeah, outstanding, and it blew me away. Like, her production value on things is just insane, and you just see what she puts into it. And I watched the
Yeah.
documentary also, and
Mm-hmm.
it's she is a killer at what she does, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, she's definitely a producer too, like artistic director, very she has a very clear vision of what she wants things to sound like and look like. And
Mm-hmm.
she should be given more credit for that, aside from just like being a good singer, right?
Yeah, I didn't know any of that stuff about her, so when I watched that, I was kind of like taken back, like, wow, you really got your hand in a bit of everything that's going on.
Yeah. People like her, Taylor Swift too. Yeah.
Yeah, Taylor Swift would be a fun one I'd like to talk to hear some just all the fun things that she's gone through.
Yeah. I hope you get to talk to her. That would be great.
At some point, that's my goal, is to get up there talking to some of the big names.
Mm-hmm.
So next question I have for you, what is one thing that you think should be asked more in an interview scenario that's not asked enough?
Um,
Not necessarily about you, but just in general, like if you were watching an interview, what would you
Hmm.
like to hear more?
Uh, I when it comes to like music interviews, I really like hearing people's like process, as opposed to just kind of like, oh, it's a nice song. Like, what's it about? Like, I really like deep interviews that kind of get into like nitty gritty technical things. I like watching who's the guy? Sean Evans for Sweet Feast Hot Ones.
Yeah, I love
I
that.
think he asks really good questions because he digs really deep and he asks kind of like questions that really make people think.
Hmm.
Yeah, things like that are just like not as they're deeper, like not just surface level questions. But like,
Yeah, I strive for a scenario like that where, I mean, I know I ask some decent questions, but I know there's probably some really, deep dive questions that are really interesting. I'm
mhm.
not the greatest person at researching, and I know that. And,
Okay.
you know, but I watch him, and then there's also old school Nardwar the Serviette,
Oh
who pulled out some of the most insane questions that just blew people away.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like, how do you know that? Who told you that?
Mm-hmm. I can remember a few times watching like YouTube interviews with him, and the people were like, only this person who lived next door to me when I was 12 years old knew that. So how do you know that?
Kind of creepy, but it's like flattering as well.
That someone goes to that detail. I one of my writers was someone who went to that detail for a while, and it was always just wow, where did you find that?
Mm-hmm.
It was crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think another thing that I think would be interesting to hear people talk about is maybe what kind of changes that they hope to see in whatever sphere that they're working in. Just to see if like how much they care about, making a real impact on what they do. So for example, if it's like talking to any songwriter or any like music producer, it's like what changes do you want to see in the music industry? Like what do you hope future generations of like musicians and songwriters can do that maybe they can't do now, but that maybe you can start creating a path for them and opening those opportunities for them. Because for me, I mean, the music industry, like you and I both know, is not that great, but it
Yeah.
can be better. And it's like, for me, am I just here to make nice songs, or can I really make a change and make it so that future generations of people like me, like other females, other Asian females, can really get a better head start on this industry? Can we educate young girls more about like job opportunities in music production and recording? Can we make it so that people actually make money from streams? Things
Hmm.
like that.
Yeah, that's actually a question I don't think I've really thought about myself, to be honest. So that's a good one. I'll add to my rotation of questions for sure.
Oh yeah.
What's one piece of advice that you were given coming up in music that you've kind of held on to?
I think similar to what I was just talking about. I was actually in a consultation with Christina Lau through Music BC. She's a career coach, kind of like artist advocate person. Also, she acts and she performs and writes as well. And she was telling me that instead of basically sitting and waiting around for the world to change into a way that we want it, is to really create that change. And I think that piece of advice has really motivated me to really understand that nobody cares about like my career more than me. So if I want something to happen, I'm gonna make it happen. Like if I want to put out music, if I want to put on shows, if I want to work with these people, like I'm gonna make it happen because no one else is gonna do it for me.
Hmm. No, I mean, that's definitely a great piece of advice. With everything that you've learned, including things like that, what is a piece of advice you would give to someone coming up?
Um, Someone coming, I would say talk to people. Talk to people, work with people, get to know people, and develop. If you don't have them already, develop really good professional skills. Especially if you're in the music industry, it's like people are very talented. Like you meet people who are like, "Oh, your voice is so lovely," or "Oh, like I love the way you play." you should be on a record, but that's totally different from people who are able to respond to you in a timely manner, who from people who are able to actually like execute visions, show up for rehearsals, show up for recording studios, be dependable. So I was just, if you're just starting out, to get a good grasp of where you are in terms of your professional skills and network so that you can really build a strong and dependable, vibrant local network of people that you can work with.
Nice. No, that's a great piece of advice too. And my final thing is why music? Why do you keep doing what you do, and what motivates you to keep going?
Uh, I don't know if I can explain my inherent love of it. I think going back to what I said earlier about being a music producer and how it's kind of like a combination of technical skills, technical proficiency, and critical thinking along with creativity. I think that's just something that I have grown up to be good at and be trained in. Like I went to, school for civil engineering. It's like you have to be very technical, you have to think smart, but it's like I love being creative. I love music. I love the way it makes people feel. I love the way that it connects people and that you can tell stories through it. And it's like it's this very interesting intersection where I can kind of do both things at the same time. And ultimately, I think I just want people to feel like they're free to express themselves, free to be who they are. And if they choose music as an avenue, like I have, then they should be able to do that. And people should be able to tell their stories and take up space and live how they want to.
No, that's lovely. I like that. That's actually pretty much all I have for you here.
Great. Thank you
So, I
for
mean,
having me. This is so great.
yeah, it was a great conversation, and I love getting to learn a little bit more about, who you are and what you plan to accomplish in the musical world.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for telling me a bit about what you do at Hidden Beats. I'm glad that we're kind of on the same page, have similar passions.
Trying to just expand everyone's world a little bit extra.
Hmm. Yeah, great, great. And shout out to Music Publishers Canada for connecting us.
We're going to make sure to link the program for everyone so they can, new people can get involved with everything and
Hmm.
try to spread the word a little bit more.
Great. Awesome.
So where can everybody find you on social media if they're going to follow you for music and all your projects?
Instagram at underscore Grace Chiang. That's underscore GRACECHIANG. My website is www.gracechiang.com. You can be entertained by watching me try and be Gen Z. If you want to check me out on TikTok at underscore Grace Chiang. Yeah,
Everything
you'll
Grace
find
Chiang, basically.
yeah, you'll find if you Google Grace Chiang music, you'll probably find me.
We'll make sure to link some of the stuff in the description of the videos and stuff too.
Great. Thank
Well,
you.
it was lovely talking to you, and I wish you success with everything you're doing. And like I said, send me some information. Instagram's usually pretty quick and easy, or emails through the website,
Great.
so we can try to help out with your concert series.
Yes. Thank you so much. It's been awesome.
No problem. You enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Thank you.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.